out of our sixth senses, so much more emphasis is placed on sight. I think just in our culture in general, that we have the tendency to always focus on all of these visual images that are coming to us. I mean, you think about in an hour's time, how many images, thousands, I would think, of images actually come through the television and the computer. So we've kind of been conditioned to be captured by these sights. The pace of sight, which is really based on reflections of light, comes at a much quicker pace, which you see here, 186,000 miles per second, as opposed to sound, which goes at a slow speed, relatively speaking, of only 1,100 feet per second. That's a drastic difference. So really the organ of hearing makes us balanced. I mean, in the physical sense, but in the communication sense, and I think also in a larger sense, that it really keeps us balanced because we have to slow down. And we're not just looking at the surface of things. You know how we can actually catch the tone and the intonation and the innuendos of a lot of the sound and of people's voices, right? So hearing versus seeing has this kind of difference. We also think about, for those of you who are interested in any Buddhist scripture at all, if you ever want to check out the Shurangama Sutra, it actually specifically talks about the various senses and their advantages and disadvantages. So with the eyes, for example, eyes can close. And so that at that particular point, there's no object for you to contemplate on if you do a contemplative practice. And you can't see what's behind you. But with the ears, you don't turn it off. There are no lids here to the ears to turn off. And we can actually even hear beyond walls. So there's no obstruction to hearing. It's ever present and constant. Oh, so these are just some of the optical illusions that I put up about how there's a lot more illusions through sight, but you don't ever, or there's hardly anything alluded to about optical illusions, audio illusions, but there's only optical illusions. We're easily confused by sight, but not so much by hearing. So you see, you've seen some of these, right? Some of the reverse pictures and the rabbit and the duck. And then in the shade, if you see that on the chessboard there's actually an A and a B. Those two squares, they're actually the same color. But because of the shadow, we see them as two completely different colors, if you catch that. And then the line that's across, it's actually a consistently same colored gray. But here, because of relativity, we see a difference. Okay, so to what do we listen? We listen to all kinds of different things. But our hearing is always there, but the comprehension is not necessarily always there. Research has shown that we only actually understand or capture 50% of what we listen to. So try as you might as you listen to me, and I accept this, right? You listen to me and you walk out of here. At the most, you will only take away half of it. That's hearing. And that's probably the best of our senses, as we compare the senses earlier. We only get about 50%. So it's possible for us to do more. And it takes some of these things. So I suggest some of these things here, and we're going to try some of these things. This is a poem by David Wagner. The beginning of this poem is actually advice from Native Americans to Native American elders to a lost boy. And it says, "Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here." This is about listening from silence within ourselves. And that leads me into the experiential part of it. You have some wonderful insights there. I mean, it's very true that when we're usually in dialogue, we're busy about thinking the next thing to say, and we're too busy being self-conscious. So that's why I didn't give you the second question. We're too busy, thinking about ourselves than really listening to the other person, and that makes just infinite difference. Being very absorbed in listening to someone is a form of focus and concentration that let us drop a lot of our usual worries and concerns, which actually we repeat every day, 90% of them, they're all the same. But at that point of absorption, we're just really focused in on somebody. It's pure joy, right? And then the other part of it, this being a gift, just really think about, you may be together as partners for the last 12 years, 20 years, and it seems like, he's always telling the same stories. Oh, she's always going out in circles, right? You can always have that. But if you were really to take listening as a gift, actually set some time to just really listen to him, even if that person is still telling the same story, and even if she's going around in circles sometimes, but say to yourself, I'm now going to give the gift of listening, and just listen to that person. I think that you'll feel very differently. Yeah.
Also, I would add, when you're single, is listening to yourself, because I realize, really giving yourself that gift and to what your emotions might be, your feelings, or something that's giving yourself that time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that all of the listening has to come from, listening to ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to give. There's nothing to draw from. So, when we are comfortable listening to ourselves, then other things will just emerge and come easily. Yeah. This is on the Bell's theorem. It's a physics theorem. And it talks about how, our table salt is sodium chloride, right? It's made of two basic molecules. When these two molecules are separated, the chloride and the sodium are in different parts. Let's say, we now have a molecule in Seattle and the other molecule in Moscow. Well, even though they're separated, they continue to spin toward each other. So imagine all of the molecules and all of the cells that we work with, even though they change and they separate, they continue to tune into each other. So we are in constant communication. So you pointed out that exactly. That's exactly it. We are in constant communication, not just in words at all. And even though there's, forward speech, reverse speech, there's the silence between the speech, and then there's, just at the cellular level, there's communication. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for that. Recently at a conference, and there were just a lot of people that were gathered, and there were a lot of information that were available, but it was in a tune that was kind of marching on. Let's get the information, and we're pushing for a cause and all of that stuff. And there was no time to really to allow the silence to come in. And as opposed to, what you described in your in dyads, and also a lot of times that happens in circles, is that when we actually allow for the silence to come forth, the silence becomes life-giving and dynamic. It's like you usually have kind of a pre-planned speech in your head about what you're going to say. But when the silence happens, you actually kind of allow all of that suppositions to just kind of let go of them. And then a new emergence that's much more refreshing, that matches the intensity of the silence that come forth. And that's true authenticity. So when that happens, you are communicating at a whole different level.